There's a revolution happening in today's multi-billion-dollar college sports industry. Over 100 years ago, the NCAA was created to regulate and control college sports. Their core principle was that college athletes should be classified as unpaid amateurs, barring those who compete in it from profiting off their fame. Fast forward to 2021, and college athletes are still not getting paid to play. But for the first time in history, they can make money off their name, image, and likeness.
And that's not what we do. Like, transferring athletes is part of it, yes. But we look at every aspect of the athlete situation and potential situations. So the money is one aspect. You're going to go buy the car, buy the grills, buy all this stuff. And we've actually created a partnership with Johnny Dang for our guys. And they get iced out, they get jewelry. It doesn't cost them anything. And it's a legit partnership. I hear that all the time. People are like, oh, this NIL stuff, the portal's ruining it, all this stuff. And I get it. College football had this sense to it where it was like American. It was like Americana. Yeah. Like, it was like, pure, just grit, playing your heart out just to win. The NFL is transactional. NFL, you're going for a paycheck, you're getting paid, it's business. But the reality is, the stone cold reality is that they've been paying guys under the table in college for a long time.
What's up, everybody? Another opinionated off topic. Today we're with Jacob Piasecki, owner, co-founder of A&P Sports Agency. Super excited about this one. We're going to talk NIL, talk football, talk sports, all of that. If you guys know, me and Carlos covering sports for a long time, so this is a really cool interview for us. We're excited to dive in all things NIL. So yeah, want to start it off. You just give us a little bit about your background, your introduction, why you got into this space in general.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to thank you guys for having me. I'm excited. I know we've been DMing back and forth, trying to get this thing going.
Of course. Thank you for having us. It's like you said, it's been a long time coming, so it's finally cool that it's here. So I appreciate you.
Yes, man. It's been a long overdue. So yeah, we're in the AP office. This is a conference room. This is where we do a lot of the negotiation prep work. So we got our our war room here. But I'm glad you guys can make it out. So the origin story, how this whole thing came about, how I got into this. So my business partner, Stefan Aguilera, he had a very big, social following in College Station, Texas. He had a prominent multimedia business. He was able to help brands reach the students and alumni in College Station, Texas. So he had that going on. I had this other company. It was a social media app for college students. And what I was doing was, it was an app where you could put in your course schedule and it would put you in group chats where you could share stuff anonymously. Homework, quizzes, tests. There was like video calling. You could do group study sessions. There were like campus stories. So like UT could have a campus story. A&M could have a campus story. It embodied a lot of different parts from other social media at the time. Similarities to like Yik Yak and some of the other what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They would get wild on Yik Yak.
Yeah. It would.
So I had this app, and I needed to market it, and I needed to get to college students. And college students, they don't have a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of resources. They're college students. So I'm like, shit, how am I going to get all these kids to sign up for my app, right? And you can tell a college kid, hey, this is the benefit of signing up, this, and that. You can share stuff. They don't care. They care about partying, having fun, having a good time. So I go to Stefan, he has this company called The Agazine. I go to him and I'm like, hey, I want to hire you. I want you to throw bar tabs for me. So I want you to go to all the bars, negotiate the deal, throw a bar tab, and I'll pay for all the alcohol for the night. I want every kid that walks in to sign up for the app, and they can hang out there, drink on my dime. But they have to sign up for that. And he's like, say less. And then, he started hosting these bar tabs. The app started blowing up. Within, I'd say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I had over 1,000 A&M kids. This was during COVID. This was like 2021. This was like spring of 2021. So like, right after people started coming back to school a little bit, not really, but it worked like fucking like a charm. But what really kicked it up was that he would bring the football players in before, the bar tab actually opened. So he would hit them up like, hey man, pull up, drinks on me. And, Wademeyer, some other guys would pull up and they would be drinking and stuff. And, Stephon would be promoting that they're there, not drinking obviously, but that they're there.
Yeah.
And the turnout would be so much more greater when he did that than if he didn't do that. So I kind of saw the power of NIL before it really became a thing. This is like spring of 2021. So long story short, Jalen Wademeyer, the tight end for A&M at the time, gives Stephon the heads up that NIL is going to become a thing. And he asks him, hey, could you help me out with getting some deals or doing some branding stuff? And Stephon approaches me and he's like, hey man, I need a business partner to do this. You have these set of skills. I want you to do this with me. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, shit. I just see dollar signs, dude. I'm like, this is going to be a big thing. We're going to make a lot of money. And that was not the case for the first couple of years. It was grind after grind after grind. And it was not like, win the lottery, right? So go back to the story, get the heads up. We start the company and we start signing athletes, start meeting with all the A&M athletes. We're like, hey, we're going to build your brand, get you deals. And at this time, I was working with a lot of influencers. I was hiring a lot of people to promote my social media app. So beyond the bar tabs, I was doing, social media marketing. So I'd hire like influencers, people that were on, TV shows and stuff. And I knew what people were making for this kind of stuff. And, you have to have a strong engagement. You have to have a really good following that's going to engage with your content in order for a business to kind of pay you for the results. So, we sat down with all these players from A&M at the time, and this was, ground zero of NIL. A&M, I think, pioneered a lot of what we see today with these collectives and these athletes getting paid. I mean, Jimbo Fisher had the best fucking recruiting class of all time.
I wonder why.
I mean, why do you think they all showed up?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a video that got right before NIL or right when NIL started. There's a video got leaked about on the recruit visit, like all those donors up there. This is why they pay y'all to come here.
Right.
And
It's absolutely right.
That video got leaked, and we're like, we knew it all along.
Yeah, I mean, they figured out that this is an avenue which they can pay the guys over the table rather than under the table. You got to remember one thing: college sports has always been like this. They've paid guys under the table, for
Forever.
a long
Forever.
time.
Everybody does
forever.
it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. If you're a top 25 team, you got to be competitive in every aspect. It's not just ball, not just coaching staff, not just facility. You got to be competitive on the money, right? So, back to the story. We're meeting with the players, and none of them really started, really wanted to work with us. They were all kind of hesitant. They were all kind of, it was hard to explain to them how much it was going to take to build their brand and audience. So we were asking for a pretty big cut of the marketing deals. This was not collective contracts. This was not, revenue share. This is just pure brand deals. So they didn't want to, all of them didn't want to work with us. And then when we finally signed Damon Demas was like our big guy. We signed Damon. He was our breakthrough guy. And, we landed this deal with him for Walmart and Durex condoms. So, Damon's kind of a character. So when he got this deal, this shit blew up. Like in the locker room, I think 24/7 Sports wrote about it. People were talking about this for some time. But he loved it. He's the kind of guy who loves the attention, loves the personality. He's a personality for it. And so he loved the spotlight. And that kind of puts on the map a little bit as like an agency. And one thing I realized was that we needed a strong legal presence because I saw where this was going. There's a lot of contracts involved. These athletes' rights, for their license are going to, are starting to come into play. So Stephon was like, hey, we need to get this guy, Tony Busby, as our attorney. And at this time, I didn't really have any idea who Tony was, to be honest with you. And I was looking him up. I was like, okay, this guy is pretty legit. Yeah. He has, pretty strong background. He's an Aggie. I mean, he's definitely very successful. So Stephon DMs him. He's like, hey, I think they've been DMing in the past about, I think there was like this bar or something that, almost collapsed or burned down or something, and they were DMing, and he reached out to him and he gave us his time of day to come and pitch him, and we're very grateful for it. We showed up to his office and we pitched him to be a partner and to help us with the legal end, and he accepted, and he countered, obviously. But we eventually agreed, and he he became a partner. So he does our legal work, and he's one of the partners at the agency. So we had that now. So me and Stephon were constantly grinding, calling businesses, trying to get deals for athletes. We had our legal in check, and then the industry started to evolve. Right. So we're going from this time period where it's heavily marketing. A&M kind of figures out, okay, this is how we can, be more competitive than other schools on the money end. Other schools figure it out. Other schools start copying A&M. And now you have, this ecosystem where you have these collectives paying guys, and these guys are making, considerable amounts of money. I mean, anywhere from a couple $100,000 to over $1 million a year to play college football. Easy. So, all these schools are starting to be competitive in this aspect. We start seeing what's happening, and we realize that we need to become more involved on that end and, start negotiating for these guys. So, we have always kept the foundation of the marketing, right? We've always kept that as our we're building the athlete's brand. We're going to get them deals. We're going to help them, monetize online if you live in that day and age. But at the same time, they need help with these negotiations as well. When an athlete goes and talks to their coach, the coach has so much influence on you because they recruit you, your parents, they're in your head. And it's not a bad thing because they mean good. They want you to be part of the program. They want you to win. They want success. But at the same time, they're looking out for their own best interests as well, right? So, when we come into the table and we negotiate, we bring in a different voice. We obviously have relationships with these guys as well. Being in the industry, doing this for since the beginning of it, we know everybody. We know the GMs, so we're able to bring that into the mix and leverage the history of doing this because we've been negotiating these contracts for some time, and the relationships. And I think that's a big part of our success. We've traveled, we've done things that nobody wants to do. Like in the first few years of NIL, when it was mostly focused on marketing, me and Stephon, we traveled the country, visiting all our clients and getting them deals. Like we would go knock on doors, go to each business and pitch them on why, this defensive end is going to be good for their marketing. And we would have like all the data, the analytics, all that stuff, and we would pitch them and we would go and do this. And no one else in the country was doing it. So we built trust with the athletes, and that was key. And then, as the industry evolved, the collective contracts became more of a driver, and now we do both things, right? We do the marketing and the collective contracts. So now it's turned to revenue share. Now the institutions are paying the athletes, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of how this whole thing came about and why I'm here today doing what I do.
That's cool. I mean, you have to. Somebody, I forgot who said it, but we always call it the unsexy work. You have to do the unsexy work before you can have the sexy stuff.
Work,
Right.
Do the sexy stuff, which is good on y'all because for y'all to be the first people to do and attack it, obviously, college athletes are all connected. They all live in the same states. They all go to the same camps. They all do the same things together, so they talk.
Right.
And it's all at that point, it just becomes word of mouth. Right. If you have that, you're gonna have every athlete coming to your corner, like, hey.
Right.
How can I get on with y'all? Like, what can we do where I can build my brand as well? And it's also smart to start on the marketing side because that's how any business gets seen is from the marketing.
Right. I mean, we follow a national progression of the industry, right? So, like, we have been with it since the inception of it, since it's been created, legally speaking, right?
Yeah.
So, like, prior to this, it was McDonald's bags that the university would give you and say, hey, you're going to commit. I mean, literally, I would have guys telling me stories. They would go on the recruiting visit, they'd go see the campus, whatever. They do the photo shoot. Before the photo shoot, some guy, one of the people asked him, what do you get from McDonald's? He's like, McDonald's? What are you talking about? And he's like, all right, a Big Mac or whatever. The kid does a photo shoot, comes out, and sitting there in the locker room's a McDonald's bag, and guess what's in there? the Big Mac and 40 grand.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be. And now, it's legitimized to an extent. I mean, granted, it's not the NFL, but you have a contract, you have, things you have to abide by. So, we've been here since the inception of the industry, since its start. And, we followed kind of the industry's evolution. We went from marketing to, doing marketing and these deals.
Since you've been here from the beginning, how many of the numbers that were shouted out very early are true? Like Bryce Young, he was one of the early ones that the guy was $1 million deal. Jaden Rashada coming out of high school, they're saying that Miami was paying him $9 million to go to that school. So all those big numbers that everybody threw out at the beginning, excuse me, how much of that was actually true versus what was actually paid? Because I used to work at Best Buy, and Bijan came in, and I talked to him, and it was right when NIL was starting around, and because Nick Saban said you have Bryce Young making $4 million or something like that, and then I asked Bijan, I was like, "Is that true?" He was like, "No, that's not true. I'm really good friends with Bryce. He's not making $4 million." I don't know if he was just telling me that to tell me that, or if that was actually true, but I could also see it not being true because it came from Nick Saban's mouth, so people are gonna believe oh, I want to go play for Bama, $4 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing with this space. There's a lot of misinformation. You have a lot of people saying a lot of different things that are not true, right? And a lot of it's a lot of press play. People are trying to get, the press on them, right? I mean, Alabama wants to look competitive. They want to look like they are paying the guys what other schools are paying, right? In some cases they are, some cases they aren't. It just depends. I can tell you right now, Alabama's not the top spender. They're not. And they have reasons that they don't have to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, they win.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to go play and win, you go play there. Now, DeBoer being there, he still has to show that, right? But historically speaking, with Saban, I mean, you know what you're walking into, right? So, man, that's the big thing with our industry. A lot of misinformation, and people, kind of just sit there and they come up with their own opinions, and they're like, oh, these agents are, just transferring people and all this. And that's not what we do. Transferring athletes is part of it, yes. But we look at every aspect of the athlete situation and potential situations. So the money is one aspect, right? We look at multiple facets of, the experience of them playing there, right? The career development, the playing time, the depth chart. So we talk to the position coaches, talk to head coaches, talk to GMs. So, we're doing more than just that, but that's an example of, the misinformation that we're seeing. People think agents are scumbags, right? And we're not bad people. We're just trying to help the athlete make the best decision possible, whether it's to stay or to go. And the money gets super inflated a lot of times. People start throwing these crazy numbers, and they're like, oh, these guys are just going for the money. Yeah. Some guys are. Don't get me wrong. There's some guys who are like, all right, that's the amount that I need to retire, basically. Yeah. And if that's what they want, that's what they want to do. You know what I mean? You can't stop that, right? But a lot of the times, the guys we represent, they want to go to the league. They want to go to the NFL. They want to have a solid career that, it's like the SEC mindset, man. A lot of the guys that play for Bama, Ohio State, some of the most prominent programs, the best programs in the country, you go to that fucking locker room, dude. They only give a shit about one thing, winning that championship. Now you go to some other schools, it's like, hey, let's have a good season.
Yeah. I mean, we talked off camera a little bit about A&M, but I'm sure more athletes go there more so for the money versus even Ryan Day said it yesterday. If you're coming here, don't expect NIL money, because
they pay.
They pay for sure,
people,
for sure. But it's you come here to win, not make money, but
right.
And get drafted.
And get drafted. But the schools like that, the Bamas, Ohio State, stuff like that, people who already set that precedence for what they do, I can see them not being the ones pay as much as other people are paying because you come in here, you're gonna get drafted and you're gonna win. Right. And you're gonna have that opportunity to play for that chip.
Yeah. Right. And they definitely use those cards. They use those cards to recruit these guys. Man.
And depending on your position, win the Heisman because of who they are. It's Ohio State, that's a national name. It's Alabama, it's a national name. It's Texas, it's a national name. So that also comes with it, depending on what you play.
Now I want to put you in the mindset of my clients and these athletes. Imagine you're 18 years old, and you're in a situation where let's let's say you're 19, you just played it as a freshman, and you played for a SEC school, and you have the opportunity to transfer to Bama, or transfer to maybe a Big 12 school or ACC school, who's going to pay you a hell of a lot of money. So let's say Bama's going to pay you, I don't know, $350K for next season, and then you got a school that is not as good as Bama, Big 12 or ACC, who's going to pay you $900K.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you do?
Me personally,
Depends.
Are you asking like what do we do?
Yeah, what do you do?
I would say, like, I would just look at like one where I'm at least trajectory wise. Like if I'm like, okay, I did this my freshman year, I got 3 more years for if I get redshirted to go to the league. What school is going to prepare me to get there? But then there is the offsetting with the money, because it's like you go get this money, it's more like immediate in the future. It also depends on some of these athletes that like that money, both numbers are life changing, but when you get to a certain number and then you have like you can take care of your family, you can take care of your loved ones, and then you kind of think in that aspect, it is hard to blame some of these kids when they make those decisions.
It's lucrative.
Right.
But also at the same time, there is a balance, because you could go to school, you could perform there, but you might not get developed. You might not also get the spotlight. So maybe you go from, if you would went to Bama, maybe you get drafted, day 1, day 2, you go to this other school, maybe you have a good career still, you get drafted day 4 or day 3, and you make less in the back end. So it's like you kind of betting on yourself. So just kind of, it's a tough situation.
It is, because tomorrow's never guaranteed, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, you don't know what could happen the next day. You get injured, career ends, and you're
exactly.
done, right?
Exactly.
What do you think? What would you do?
Me personally, it's kind of what he said. It depends on what my situation is. If I'm at Bama and I'm second string, almost third string, like I'm probably gonna go take that opportunity to go play in the Big 12, where I probably know I'm gonna start, especially like if I'm a defender.
Right.
But also at the same time, if I'm at Bama, it's also putting me in a position to like I'm gonna get drafted pretty high if I'm starting. Like I know I'm gonna get drafted.
Right.
So like I know I'm gonna make that 950 turn into 13 mil for my signing bonus, whatever. So like if I'm playing actively, first and second string rotation guy, I'm probably gonna stay even for that 350 or 150, even if I'm making 150, just because I know where I can go.
Right.
If I'm like second string, third string, I'm probably going to transfer out, because one, I'm coming from the SEC, so I'm probably going to be ranked ahead of a lot of guys that are already there, just because SEC, Big Ten, like the 2 conferences, and
Competition's
their competition's higher. So like I already know I'm going to get. In my head, I'm already way more developed than they are. Especially if you go to the Big 12, knowing how their defenses are, it's non-existent. So then I'll probably go and play, because I know I am going to start there. Might not get drafted as high, but I know I'm still going to get drafted. So I think it just kind of depends on what my situation is as well.
Right. There's no right answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no right answer. You have to really look at every facet of it. It's like the money tells a lot, which is great, right? The money the money sets the tone for what the expectations are, right? Like if they say, hey, you're gonna be the starter, yada yada yada, but we're only gonna give you, 350. 350 may not mean a starter at that school.
Yeah.
So it's like, you want to make sure what the coach is telling you adds up to what the money is. But that's what these kids face every portal.
Yeah.
They have to figure out, okay, am I going to jump ship? Or am I going to stay? And what's the best for my career? You know, and it's like you're taking into consideration the depth chart, who they're bringing in at your current school, who's leaving. You got to think about, the scheme. If you're going to transfer, do you fit well with what they're running? It's like the coaching staff as well. There's some coaches that kids just don't go well with. If they're too old school, they may not fit well with them. The things you have to think about, and that's like a lot of our job. We're talking to these coaches. We're talking to, the GMs, we're talking to a lot of the staff to really figure out the fine details. So when they say a number, we know if it's actually going to add up and they mean what they're saying. It's a lot of what we're doing. And, that's what they deal with every portal.
And it's crazy too, because like you'll see, a lot of guys, especially from these bigger schools, essentially get processed out. Like the scholarships got cut to like 85 now. There's less scholarships, and now you're having to make room on your roster, especially if, teams want to upgrade, get in the portal themselves, get a couple guys, or also just for recruiting as well. So I feel like that's another thing too. Like, I don't know if you guys have, dealt with that, but maybe like a guy just gets processed out. Like they're essentially told like, hey, like you need to go find somewhere else to play because and like I feel like that's another variable that gets thrown in because a lot of the guys that do get processed out, they go from like, use Oklahoma for example, and then they'll go from Oklahoma to like a Tulsa, like a smaller G5 school.
I mean, prime example. I mean, we can use is Texas, Chauncey Cook.
Yeah.
Texas, Washington, Illinois.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Syracuse.
These
Syracuse,
SEC teams, they're stacked with talent, right? And some Big Ten teams too. They're stacked with talent. There's so much depth on the roster. Not everyone's going to play. Not everyone's going to start. So, in a way, NIL allows a lot of these teams to kind of get these guys in positions where they're going to play and start and showcase their talent. So it does help in a way, of course. I mean, it's a tough decision. A lot of these guys are facing this constantly, right? Every portal, this is pretty much what it is. It's kind of weighing out every opportunity. But there are actually a lot of guys who don't end up going anywhere too. You think about guys who enter the portal, they don't find a place, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you don't have an agent,
Then
you
they're
don't have
stuck.
Yeah, I mean, like I can call a GM and be like, "Hey, you gotta check out this guy right now."
Yeah.
Like this dude is like, check out this tape. I can get you front and center in front of a GM. If you're an athlete and you jump in the portal, who are you gonna call?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't call a GM and be like, "Hey, go check out my tape." They're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
It's like you don't have those connections, you don't have the relationships. So we're able to leverage that and really get guys front and center. So, it's a tough situation for some of these athletes for sure. And they have to make the best decision possible. Sometimes they have their parents involved, which can be a good thing. I think, like I said earlier, the coaches have a strong tie to the athletes and typically to the parents, so they're able to play on that. So.
I mean, I watched a podcast with Sark today, and that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. I mean, all the athletes that get pushed out of programs, I think the writing's kind of on the wall with their offer. Like if they don't value you, they're going to give you like a really low offer, and it's like, all right, makes no sense for you to stay here.
Yeah.
Like we've had a guy who was a receiver at a top SEC team, was there his almost entire college career. And they gave him an offer that would be like
spit in the face.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, at this
Yeah.
point you got to go explore your options. And I even talked to them. They're like, look, we love him, but it's just not going to be a good fit here. And it is what it is. And now he went elsewhere and makes $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
I'll try to like put it in like perspectives for my dad like that because he's old school. He doesn't like the NIL. He doesn't like the transfer portal. He's like, if you go there, you should stay there. Like that's how it should be. But I'm like, you got to realize like there's people that either A, aren't playing and they want to showcase what they have. So they go to a lesser school to like prove what they can do, or B, they're at a lesser school, they're dominating that school, so they want to bet on themselves and go up and show also what they can do. Like they're like both of these people are better than themselves. They're just in unfortunate situations, and that's just how it happens sometimes. And sometimes at the end of the day, it's college. You might be a 5-star, but that 5-star next to you or that 3-star next to you is just better.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And they can always bring somebody else in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The schools can go bring in a guy, and next thing you know, you're competing for your job.
Yep. I mean, that's what I dealt with, in college. Like, they're getting JUCO guys every year to replace us, even though we're productive, right? And it's like there's always a revolving door. Like, as if you're a GM, you're going to look at your roster and you're like, if I can improve it, I'm going to improve it. They're going to do that. And I think, I had a question on here, like, what are some of the differences with working with like Power 4 guys and like Group of 5 guys? Because I feel like a lot of the Power 4 guys, they kind of know like their skill level, their talent. Maybe they go from like an Alabama to like a Purdue, right? Like still Power 4, Purdue just isn't Alabama. And then you have G5 kids who are balling out at like a Charlotte. They go to like a LSU because they had a good, good season and stuff. So I feel like that's another negotiation thing, because you might, be working with a client or an athlete, and they might be at a Power 4 school making a certain amount of money. And then the best advice for them might be like, hey, it might be better for you to maybe take a pay cut and go here so you can play and maybe transfer up later if they're young. Or if they don't have much time left, go somewhere like he was saying, just to put something on tape and just get an opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, I got a question because you played ball, right?
Yeah.
How different do you think it would have been if you were able to get paid?
Man, I think it would have been a lot different, especially where I was, because I was playing at, probably like the second, sometimes third best D2 conference in the country.
Yeah.
So I think, because there was a point in time where I wanted to transfer and like go play at Texas State, UTSA, come back home. And I think, if there was more money involved and things like that, I probably would have took that chance, even if I didn't play at that school, because I'm at least getting something in return, right? So I definitely think it changes the options. You don't feel stuck, and then also too, if you would transfer, you would have to deal with like sitting out a year or just dealing with other things like new coaches and stuff. And there wasn't like a like a third party like you guys to kind of be that front facing. Already has the relationships, already has the connections to be like, hey, I have this kid. He wants to go here, go to a better school. This is like who he is and stuff. Instead of like essentially me having to bet on myself, literally transfer, be at like the bottom of a depth chart and work my way up. And that was the reason why I stayed, because I was like, I'm already here.
The risk is too high.
I was just like, there's no point of leaving.
And one thing I want to add on top of that, which I mean, I didn't play ball, but I also know like what it takes, and the biggest thing is nutrition. Like a lot of these kids in D2, JUCO, they don't have money for the nutrition.
Right.
And a lot of these college coaches, like you're tall enough, you're big enough, but you need to add 10 pounds of muscle. You need to slim down, add 10 pounds of muscle. But it's like, how do you do that if you can't afford to like go get this food, go get this protein?
You don't even have the facilities, right? Like
that too.
Some of these, even at the like group of 5 level, you go from like a school like that to like, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, you're getting steak, lobster,
They got
all
nutritionists and
nutrition. They portion your food, like you're seeing people, all that stuff.
And this like the school that he went to is like the locker room was community. Like they didn't have their own weight room.
Weight room, yeah.
It was community weight room. So
all
like
the athletics use one
a regular,
room.
So like
gotcha.
when you have stuff like that, and then you have stuff like the top-notch schools, like it's easier for them to get the nutrition. It's easier for them to cut the fat, put on that muscle, versus kids that are in D2 where the NIL would help them, because it's like, all right, well, I can actually get these grass-fed patties versus these Tyson patties, and I can actually put on good mass.
Yeah.
So that's like, I feel like that's like another big thing as well.
Absolutely. I think with NIL, there's good and bad things, right? I mean, the good thing is that a lot of these smaller schools who couldn't compete in the landscape with the collectives can now pay their guys. Yeah. So guys now have opportunities to do stuff like that. They can go get, psychological, pay for psychological assistance, nutritionists, whatever they need beyond what the school can provide. So they can go and do that. And then on the flip side, you have schools that like with this revenue share model are kind of cut the kneecaps here, because these top 25 teams, they're competitive in every aspect, right? So they'd be competitive on the money side. So now these teams who are paying $30 million per year, $40 million per year, are now limited to $15 million approximately. Okay, so you have $15 million, and all your guys are used to $30 million, $40 million. Everyone's gonna take a pay cut next year? Is that what we're doing? Everyone's gonna take a pay cut? I don't think so. I don't think at the top 25 program level they're gonna do that. They're gonna figure out ways to get these guys paid, because guess what? They're gonna end up transferring out.
Yeah, and you got to stay afloat, because now you have programs like SMU, who has been, after the Pony Express and all that, been struggling. But we all know they have one of the most prestigious alumni bases. They have a lot of people with a lot of money. So now they're able to get competitive. You have Texas Tech. They have that Eagle guy. Like, he's throwing around a lot of money now and
billionaire,
making them competitive.
And you also have Purdue, who can get to that point because they have
all these. There's like
donors.
There's like schools that are prestigious academically, but that weren't that good on the football field. Right. Like even like Diego Pavia was on
Vanderbilt's perfect example.
And he was like Nashville. Like, you got all these country music artists. Like, if we're good, they might have not went to Vanderbilt, but they live here. They're gonna pour into the into the team, and they can do that now. Make it competitive.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. The next frontier of this whole space is going to be, how to be competitive in the revenue share era, right? So like a lot of these teams, I mean, they're gonna have the same facilities. You go to see the facilities; they're all the fucking same, right? When you're at the top of the top.
Designed a little bit different. It's all the same.
Yeah. I mean, all right, they might have one or two machines.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just designed a little bit differently, but evidently,
The
like you all have
stadium-
the same stuff.
Yeah, the stadium, all right, pretty much the same. Unless you go to like an A&M or something where they got the 12 man, sure. But the really differential factors are the coaching staff, how they're gonna integrate you into the scheme, what kind of operation they're running, and then also the compensation, right? I mean, if you're talking about how to be competitive, beyond the coaching and the scheme, I mean, you have to be competitive on the money side, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of schools try to figure out ways, especially competitive schools, figure out ways how to circumvent the rules, circumvent the cap, by circumvent the rules, really play within the rules, but go above the cap.
Always a loophole.
Yeah, I mean, these donors have no problem paying these guys money to win. That's literally their ROI.
I mean, look
win.
at Phil Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just cutting checks just to get Oregon one. And then how do you like educate families and players that are like completely new to this? Like they know, like, it's all online and stuff, but like, how do you educate them to where the advice they're getting is like good advice and like kind of like where to start?
Yeah, it's a big thing. You got to manage expectations. You got to make sure they understand exactly what, this whole thing is. I mean, think about it. You're, 18 years old, you're getting thrown into this system where, previously it was just about, going and playing and you just worry about, academics and football. Now you got to worry about finances, you got to worry about taxes, you got to worry about a bunch of stuff that you didn't have to worry about previously. So, the big thing we do is a lot of educating. We're just talking to parents all the time. We're talking to athletes all the time about different aspects of this. So sometimes, when it comes to financial means or financial issues or tax issues, we have to get them with the appropriate counsel for that. So we have to go and, we have people we work with that will help guide them through that process. We don't do any of the financial stuff as an agency because we just focus on the marketing and contract negotiations, but we have those resources available. So that's a big thing that we see a lot. A lot of guys, they'll go, first thing they do when they get their big NIL check is they go buy a car or they go buy jewelry. So, I get so many phone calls, like right around February, right after that,
The
portal.
check hits, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, man, I'm at the dealership. Can you talk to them real quick? I'm trying to get this car. They need to make sure my income's legit and all this. And I'm like, buddy, before you even buy that car, you're going to walk out of that dealership. I'm going to get you with a financial guy, and we're going to get this situated to where you're budgeting your money and you're not going to blow through it. Because you got to have a foundation. You got to take the most out of this opportunity, right? A lot of the guys in the league, they go and they blow their money. And that's a huge thing that, we're seeing with NIL. These kids are younger, you know, they're getting paid a lot of money.
I mean, sorry to cut you off, but let's face it. Majority of these kids that are at the top schools come from low income households.
Of course, yeah.
So like when they see this money that they've never seen before, never thought they could achieve,
It's more money than they've ever seen in their lives.
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Right.
You're 18 years old. You know,
gonna spend it.
Exactly.
Yep. You're going to ball out. You're going to go buy the car, buy the grills, buy all this stuff. And we've actually created a partnership with Johnny Dang for our guys, and they get iced out. They get jewelry. It doesn't cost them anything, and it's a legit partnership. They're getting paid to promote, you know what I mean? Like, and we're trying to, put them in the best situation. So like in every aspect, right? So like that's on the financial end. The tax end as well, it's covered in that, getting them the professional. On the contract negotiation end, I mean, we look out for their best interest. Some of these contracts have some insane clauses. Like, all the shit they put in there is not going to stick. If you go to court and you actually fight this, it's like nonsense what they put in there. They know it's nonsense. They just put it in there because they want to scare the kids. A lot of intimidation factors are used.
Yeah.
And it's bad. And they use that to scare the kids from like showing the contracts to lawyers, from telling other people how much they're making, which, okay, I get. You don't want to destroy the locker room. That's fine. But like, a lot of times these contracts are basically being signed in a fucking closet at some, facility. That's wild. It's very intimidating. So, we take care of the contract work. Tony's team, we take care of the contract, and we take out like liquidated damages. So liquidated damages are like in the event the athlete terminates or transfers, they have to pay back money. We take that out because you earn that money. You did the work, you know, and I get like where the schools are coming from, because what they don't want is a guy that comes in the winter portal,
Gets paid,
collects 50 grand, jumps in the spring portal and dips. But
Arkansas.
the schools are paying for these athletes to do these posts and stuff. So the athlete does the post during that time period, he earned the money. You know, I mean, he was there for practice. He showed up. He did the stuff he's supposed to do. I mean, granted, things didn't play out, but, you know, it is what it is.
What about like the Nico situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, I get where these schools are coming from, where these GMs are coming from. Because shit, if it was me, I'd probably be doing the same thing. I mean, you know, I'd be protecting my bottom end, you know, the bottom line. I mean, you know, there's only so much money they can dish out, and if people are just coming in, taking the money, and jumping ship, that's a huge loss, because you're not getting any utility out of the athlete. So it's like, you know, I definitely talk to the GMs and I relate to them in that sense. I'm like, I get where you guys are coming from, you know, but at the same time, my obligation is to my clients. You know, I have fiduciary responsibility. I have to, you know, negotiate in their best interest. So, you know, there are things that we've seen that are just like, you know, borderline egregious in these contracts, you know, and it is what it is. You know, it's just things we have to take out and negotiate. And a lot of times when we go and fight for it, you know, we're able to get these things out of the contracts. And what we realized is how much the school values the athlete determines how much stuff they're willing to take out of the contract. If you're, you know, not playing, no production, buddy, guess what?
Everything's staying in there.
they're trying to keep all that stuff in there, you know. So we have to fight like hell to get them to pull the stuff out, you know. And it's like that's a tough thing. It's, you know, it's like trying to, you know, negotiate that plus compensation, and then, you know, find the right fit for the athlete. You know, it's like this whole you know, system that you know, we're trying to, you know, solve the equation for each guy. Trying to find the optimal, you know, spot with having the right stuff, you know, the right compensation and the right resources. So
why are the dollar amount of the contract so private? Because I mean, at this point, it is kind of semi-pro football. It's not amateur anymore because you're getting paid. But when you go to the NFL, all that's like, as soon as somebody gets paid, it's public. Or I can look up any offensive lineman I want to and see like how much they're making, how much it breaks down for the year and whatnot. But like college, like why is like that part closed off? So at the end of the day, like you know, like Ryan Williams is gonna get paid more than, I don't know, Ryan Wingo, just because you know who Ryan Williams is. He knows he's gonna bring table. So like, why is that like a closeted thing?
It's a closeted thing due to, you know, how these collectives have operated, right? And they don't want these numbers disclosed because it can create issues, one, in the locker room. So if your teammate is getting paid more than you, psychologically that has an effect on you.
100%.
And it psychologically has an effect on everybody else in the locker room. So that's one aspect. Two, if you start disclosing that information and another team doesn't disclose it, you've now lost leverage when you go and try to recruit other guys, or, you know, when guys are getting poached, right? So the only way I would see that working is if every school agreed to disclosing that, and, you know, no one hid the numbers, because then it's all out there like the NFL, right? But if there's one entity or one university who's like, nah, we're not going to do that, then everyone else is, you know, putting that out there, and all they have to say is, oh yeah, you know, that's too low or something, and use that against them, right? So I think, you know, there are a couple different factors, but I think, you know, probably the coaching staff doesn't want that. That's probably the biggest driver. It would just change the locker room completely. It'd make them like the NFL, I think, too. Very transactional, where it's like, all right, you know, you're here to do a job and that's it.
So you're talking about like these collectives, these contracts, and the negotiations and stuff like that. I guess when there's like a big deal on the table for like a quarterback or like a receiver or running back or DN, and there's like multiple people, like hands in the pot, I would say. So like there's probably like maybe 4 different collectives or like all this to get to like a certain number value. How do you guys deal with all that, like all those moving parts, if you do deal with stuff like that?
Yeah, so I had to, you know, give praise where praise is due.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the donors have consolidated to one collective.
That's nice, yeah.
So at most institutions. So when I talk to a GM, that's who I typically negotiate the numbers with. The GM, I negotiate the number, and then the collective sends the contract. So it's not like I have to go and talk to 5 different collectives to get all the money together. They've kind of consolidated internally. So I talk to one person about the numbers, and then another person sends me the contract, and I go back and forth on the contract with them until we agree on the terms. And that's pretty much the process, bird's eye view, pretty much the process. So, way back when like Ohio State had like a couple collectives and you would have to, figure that out. You would have to talk to multiple people. But now, as it's kind of evolved, it's become more systemized and more, concrete. You're talking to very few people now. Because year before, I was talking to head coaches all the time. There were no GMs.
Yeah.
Not this last winter portal, but the one before that, I was calling head coaches. I would call John Summerall, whoever I would call them, and I would talk to them and negotiate. Now it's, there's a GM. There's, a position at these schools who their sole job is to manage the roster.
I was gonna ask, how is it hard to like always keep up with what's going on? Because I feel like it's still new, so everybody's like trying to figure out what to do and how to operate correctly. Or now that you got the NCAA getting involved and trying to make it, people can only make a certain amount of money. So like, how hard has that been for y'all to always keep up with like the changes that I feel like are kind of almost every day? Like the GM's a new thing this season,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're at the forefront of a lot of this. So we've been, consistently keeping up with a lot of relationships. Like I said, we travel the country, we meet with people. We're constantly, at the forefront of, the evolution of this space. So it hasn't been difficult for us to keep up by any means. We've been able to, really just hit the ground running when we started the company and have been doing it since. We haven't really slowed down. It's been, we've just adapted and evolved with the industry. So, the big thing next is going to be going around the cap, right? And that's what schools are going to look for. Or going above the cap. This is more of a politically correct way of saying it, above the cap.
I'm sure at that point, that's when everybody's schools, like all the lawyers, get involved in like, all right, this is how we're going to go above the cap.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said earlier, they're going to rely on brands to help do that based on what the rules are right now. I will say, though, if I had to predict what's going to happen in the next portal and next couple of years of NIL, you're going to see a lot more transfers, even with the new rules. I think the revenue share model, with the way they're doing it, I don't know if it's going to be sticking like they think. The reason being, I've been around since the beginning of this space. I've seen Compass NIL. I've seen Influencer. I've seen Open Doors. I've seen all these platforms they've used to report deals and to manage this stuff. Try getting an 18, 19, 20, even 21-year-old to do anything. I mean, we were all that age at one point. We know what it's like. You're like, dude.
Especially playing football at a D1 level, depending on what conference you're in, you're tired.
Yeah.
After practice, after
to report
film
deals
room,
and like report how much you're getting and the merch. And here's the kicker too. The way this system works with NIL Go and this new system with revenue share, you're supposed to report every single deal. So there's a platform you go on, NIL Go, and you're supposed to report every single deal that you get. The non-monetary and the monetary portion of the deal. And then the AI that they have inside this NIL Go that Deloitte has put in place, the NCAA has put in place, determines a value for you. So if your value is, let's say your value, Cam, is, $10,000 for an endorsement deal, for an Instagram post. And let's say you have a great game, you have a touchdown at the Iron Bowl that wins the game or something. And you get an offer for a $50,000 endorsement deal with Jersey Mike's, and you submit it. What happens is it's going to get flagged through the AI. And then you have to go and explain to them why you got $50,000 and not $10,000, which is your market value. And then if they don't deem it as acceptable, you're not going to get the 50 grand. You have to lower the compensation to 10,000.
That's insane.
And that's the thing, like your valuation is going to fluctuate through the season. Like you might be, we see it every year. There's always some like guy that pops up.
Even if it's dynamic, even if it's dynamic, like how can they?
They don't see you play.
even if they have a calculator that attributes for playing factors,
Yeah.
how can they say, you're not worth 50 grand, even though it's a legitimate deal?
Yeah. And it also depends on where you are too. Like you could be at a school that's never won. For
Yeah.
example, like Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
You never win at Vanderbilt. You're over here beating Alabama, playing Texas competitively. These things that just don't happen at a school like
Right.
that. And then that's like a player like, because I think I was talking to you and I was like, because we were looking at On3's like valuations like on their website. And we don't know like how accurate that stuff is. But we were just talking about the numbers and I was like, yeah, it says Pavia is like allegedly making like $3 million a year.
Let me ask him, how long has On3 been around for?
Not super long,
5
but
years
the guy
maybe?
that made On3 has made everything though.
Yeah. He's made Rivals. And
Yeah,
247, but
Rivals 247.
On3's been around for what, 5 years?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
You're gonna take your news from a source that's been around for 5 years?
Yeah, you can't. And like they're like the leader, but that's like where everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna go here.
I mean, yeah, it's where
And,
you
like,
go
look
to,
at-
you
look at
know?
stuff,
Yeah, I
you know?
mean, they definitely capitalized on
Yeah.
the moment. I mean, they were first one in, sure, but I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Like, but the point I'm trying to make here is with what they're trying to do. I mean, this is coming from the athletes directly. They're telling me exactly, what they're being told. Right now, the NCAA is having these people go to these schools, tell them, hey, if you don't put these deals through NIL Go, you can lose your eligibility. And if you put them in there and it's not your market value, there might be a situation where you have to lower it to your market value. And everyone in the room is like, what the hell? I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
Like, why would I even report it?
Yeah.
I talked to the NCAA. I met with them. We have a great relationship with the NCAA. We have a great relationship with the NCAA. And, we talked and I'm like, what are you guys going to do? Take a kid's eligibility away because, of a deal? Like, especially in this first year,
Yeah.
what's the situation? And, what I've understood from the conversations is that this year is a calibration year. It's going to be, their AI, their system really calibrating and trying to get accurate. So the NCAA has a database of every single NIL deal that has been disclosed in the last 4 years. Deloitte didn't use any of it. They didn't use any of the data. They didn't want it. So they're going to try to use, I guess, the data moving forward and what they've already established. It's weird, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make
doesn't
sense.
any
Working backwards.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's going to be a calibration year. So I don't think athletes are going to get docked. They're going to lose eligibility. They will make an example of somebody sometime in the future. When is the big question. So I think honestly it's going to be business as usual. I think there's going to be guys transferring. There's going to be donors behind the scenes with these brands. And there's going to be, the school's now paying the athletes more money in the system. So I think athletes are actually going to get paid more than what they were getting paid previously. There's more money now at play.
Yeah.
And, this first year is going to be a slap on the wrist. And it really comes down, this whole thing comes down to, can you actually get the athletes to report the deals?
That's the last thing on their mind.
It is.
Yeah.
If you're an 18, 19, 20-year-old, you're going to the bar tab for class chat.
Yeah.
You're going to the bar tab for the guy's app. You're not going to report your deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, it sucks too because it's like these kids deserve it, and NCAA has just always just been money hungry. Like they just want the money, and I feel like that's like part of the big issue is they don't have the control. They want the control.
There's a good argument to make that this is like ruining college football. I hear that all the time. People are like, oh, this NIL stuff, the portal's ruining it, all this stuff. And I get it. College football had this sense to it where it was like American. It was like Americana. Like it was like, pure, just grit, playing your heart out just to win. The NFL is transactional. NFL, you're going for a paycheck, you're getting paid, it's business. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, the stone cold reality is that they've been paying guys under the table in college for a long time. All it is that we're seeing now is just above the table.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's like Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. Remember when you were a kid and you believed in Santa and you were like looking forward to every Christmas? You go check the Christmas tree and you got the presents and you're excited. And then one Christmas you wake up and you see your dad or your stepdad or whoever putting presents underneath the tree, and in your heart just like, damn,
Or Santa.
Santa's not real. But guess what you do? You still open the fucking presents. the system still keeps on going. That's what it is. It's not changing. It's just now light shined on it.
One question I did have for you, because you said you predict in the future more transfers will happen.
Yeah.
But there's 5 of y'all? 6 of y'all?
Yeah. So we have some stuff that's remote, and we have about 6 people here. Yeah.
How hard is it? Because college athletes in general, y'all do more than just football. Well, I know we're focusing on football, but y'all do more than just football. So how hard is it for y'all to talk to all these athletes and also try to work these deals out when these brands also have like a close time as well?
Right.
So like, where does how do y'all get all that in? Because
how do we do all the work with the team we have?
Because y'all have over 100 athletes,
right?
But there's only X amount of brands, and those X amount of brands just say close at 5 o'clock.
So this is a great thing about how we establish our company. We've done all the groundwork we need for the connections we need for all these brands. Like Chick-fil-A, Stephon can call the chairman of Chick-fil-A, Dan Cathy, like that. And we use the data from these brand deals in the past. So like when we sign an athlete, we get them in with a brand deal. We show that they're successful in that campaign, and we leverage that to get more opportunities, right? So we already have the connections, which is what you need to go into the door and pitch them. As long as I can show the data and that it makes sense for them to get paid, they're going to get paid on the deal, right? So we've done a lot of the groundwork that we need already. So, I'm able to put, my people in place to be the external voice now instead of myself or Stephon, and they're able to manage these campaigns. And we usually get a lot of guys on like one brand deal. Sometimes we have like one guy for one brand in specific, like Jadarian Price. He was on Crumble, and he was like our only guy that we did Crumble with. But sometimes we have guys who are like, we put, 20 guys on a Spider deal or on a Hyde Park deal or something, right? Because a lot of them match that brand too. Because like what we don't want to do is put our athletes in a brand deal where they don't actually like the brand. You'll see a lot of like deals where it's like, hey dudes or something. And athletes are like, yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah, I'll take the deal. But they don't actually really not respect the brand, but they don't take pride in it, right? They're not like, oh shit, man, that's
something they like.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, and my perspective of this whole thing is, how can I provide the maximum utility to my client, right? So financially, we talked about, the finances, giving them that resource. We talked about negotiating a lucrative contract, checking for their not just checking, but for managing their best interest when it comes to contracts. When it comes to brand building, it's getting them brand deals they actually want to get, like car deals they actually want to get, getting them commercial deals they actually want to get. We got 2 guys in a movie, like a real movie, not like a, indie movie. It's like a real movie. Mario Lopez's kid's in it. Chris Klein's in it. We have like real actors in the movie, and these guys have roles in it. They're actually saying lines. They're not just in the background. Like, we're doing groundbreaking things because we listen to our clients and we realize what they want, and we have the connections to do it because we built that so early on. So, I think it's just about providing as much utility as possible, giving them all the resources possible to be successful in every asset and in every facet, right? So like, we have the best legal team. We have Tony that reviews the contracts. We are great at negotiating these deals because we have the relationships, right? We know the GMs, we have the history, the data, and we're constantly exploring the market for our guys. We're talking to all the GMs. We know how much they're paying, the gaps they have. The brand side, we're constantly looking at their social media engagements, giving them content. We're building their brand. So we send content monthly to our guys. They get content, and it helps, get their following up. Yeah. And we give them speaking opportunities, right? So we'll go out and we'll actually set them up with interviews. Brand building, I think, is a big thing. When I talk to a lot of parents, especially when I sign athletes, I talk to a lot of parents and all these other agents, all these other entities that are competing with us. They're focused about the league, about the NFL. They're like, oh, we're going to rep him now, but then we're going to rep him in the NFL. We only do NIL. We only do this. I'm only concerned about maximizing this time period, and that's it. Like, obviously, if your goal is to go to the league, I'm going to make sure that you're going to have the development for your career to go to the league. But at the same time, I'm going to make sure you maximize this opportunity.
Yeah, because not everybody can go to the league.
Right. Less than 3% make it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you're making $500,000 a year and, less than 3% make it to the league, if you're able to put some money away and also build your brand, now you have a cash flowing asset your social media. You have money stowed away for your future. So when your kids grow up, if you have kids, you got their college paid for, you have a down payment on a house, wherever you want to spend the money on, you got that solidification. And you can continue to make money after college with your social media. Think about it. How many pages online have a strong, engaging following with alumni and students from a university? You got Barstool, you got a couple different pages. These athletes are like walking billboards on social media. They have the alumni and students following them and engaging with their content. It's valuable. The big question is, how much is it worth? What's the fair market value? That's the big buzzword in our industry, fair market value. That's the kind of Deloitte thing that we talked about earlier. So it's like, when you go to a local business, they're willing to pay a lot of money for a guy that, Adidas may not pay any money for. For instance, like if you're a lineman at Texas, I've had this happen. A lineman at Texas never played a snap. I got one of our guys who works for us, he got a deal for him with a seafood restaurant where he's getting paid like $3,000 a month. Never played a snap. If I go to New Balance, I'm like, hey, let's do a deal with this kid. And you say, yeah, we may send him some shoes.
Yeah.
So, your fair market value, your AI calculated thing, what's it based on, Like, there's such a huge discrepancy in the market based on localized marketing versus nationwide, and it makes sense because if a business is focused on a nationwide campaign, they're not going to use a grassroots style or a influencer who's just localized. They're going to go for a big and get Matthew McConaughey, who has a way bigger reach, might have that Texas influence, but way bigger than,
someone that's not going to fizzle out.
Yeah.
Are y'all kind of at the point where y'all have built these relationships and proven yourself to y'all's partners that like you bring them somebody and they just give them a deal? Or is it like at the end of the day, they're still a company, they're going to do their due diligence and like check who this is to see like, all right, well, I can't give you what I gave this other guy, so I'm going to give him this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, these are companies. I mean, these are like, they have to answer to a boss too. Like they have to answer to shareholders or CEO or whoever. So yeah, they're going to do their due diligence. Obviously, there's a rapport built, there's trust built. I can bring him a guy, kind of like I can bring an athlete to a GM. I'm like, hey, you got to check out his tape. You got to check out this guy. He's a stud. He goes to the front of the line. So very similar fashion, reach out to these brands. I'm like, hey, right now, this athlete's having, a lot of success on the field. Engagement's up, following's up. Let's get something going. Plus, he loves your brand, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. Like, it's so much easier to pitch a brand when the athlete actually wants to promote it. Like, immensely easier.
All right, so now we're sitting down with Frankie, a good friend of mine, good friend of Carlos, has been on the podcast before in a different role, but now we're sitting down with him here in the NIL world. So kind of tell us what you've been up to and, what your new role is here.
Gotcha. How things change, right?
Yeah, crazy.
From music to sports.
It's like a year.
Yeah, well, like 2 now.
2 now,
No, I'm saying like how fast it happened. Yeah, it was like a year.
Jacob gave me a call and I had to answer. But yeah, now I'm at A&P. Used to be at LifeSound, director of player personnel here. So I handle a lot of the endorsement deals, media activations, anything that has to do with our athletes and opportunities. That's my main focus here. I help with some other things, but that's the main thing that I do. What do you want to know about exactly what I'm doing?
Well, I guess for me, give us like a day in the life for you. Like you say all these big words, but what does a day for you look like?
That depends what time of season we're in. Like, right now we just finished the portal, so it's a little different. But in the portal, that's all hands on deck. It's complete chaos. When we're not inside of that, it's I'll tell you what I did today. I got one of our athletes on a ESPN radio show host. He did a phenomenal job. Jacob talks about it earlier, where he was on the movie deal, the first ever NIL movie deal with one of our other athletes, both of them. They got IMDb's out of it. That was great. He got to talk about that on an official ESPN network. That was one thing I did today. Second thing I did today was work on our champion activation. We reached out to their team. We're getting ready to push out all the packages and get that fully rolling. Another thing, I got another athlete, one of our guys at Nebraska, just got him scheduled for a radio show as well, 93.7 out there. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of connection building with outlets, with the players, calling them. I've called 10, 15 players today, checking in on them 1, 2, making sure they got the packages they're supposed to have, and seeing where they want to go next as far as building their brand and those connections they want to build. So it's stuff like that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's because we've talked about it and stuff, and I feel like nowadays, like the media, Jacob's talked about it a lot. Like the media, social media, it's so prevalent, right? And I feel like since they're kids, they don't really understand like who they are yet. They could be playing at at these schools, producing, very well renowned and known, but there's people like Johnny Manziel, for example, started Glory Days podcast. Like he didn't do well in the league, but he was so prevalent in the NFL or in college that he's able to like do a podcast and still have a ton of value in that aspect. And I feel like there's all kind of avenues for, whether, these guys want to stream, but they want to make, their own podcasts or shows or do stuff like that, or even, doing movies and stuff like that. And I feel like that's super important because you just never know where it ends. And now like the new media, you got like, Bussin' with the Boys, the Kelsey brothers, like the Kelsey brothers just signed this crazy contract with Amazon, like $150 million more than what they were making in the league just from doing the content while they're still athletes, and it holds weight. So I think that's like really important that you're doing that and getting them that practice too, just being on camera talking and stuff like that. That's good.
I think that's a great way to describe what I do. I think my main focus is building their second value.
Yeah.
Their main value is them as a player and what they're doing on the field. The second value is building that brand, their reach, their influence, that they can hopefully carry on to that next phase of life.
I think a big thing here that we should also talk about is the relationships they're helping them build. Like
so big.
Frankie has been there for most of the Johnny Dang deals. It's like for every single one. So every deal we've had with Johnny, where the athletes come out, they meet Johnny, they meet his staff. He's helping these athletes put a face to a name, and like it's going beyond just, hey, this is a marketing deal. Here's a product, promote it. It's like, hey, we're going to help you build a relationship with some people that might bear fruit down the road.
Yeah. We're putting key people in their network that like Jacob said, that can blossom into something beautiful. Every time we have the Johnny Dang deal, I personally go down there myself, introduce the athletes to Johnny's entire team. Every single time, Johnny's ecstatic, his team's ecstatic. They exchange numbers, like they're in that network forever now. Another good example, we just put one of our Alabama guys on an Alabama podcast, had a legendary Alabama running back on it, and it also had NFL scout. And this is one of our running backs. It's a great person for him to get in front of. He may not have known who he was before that, but now he does. Mm-hmm. And now he knows who he is. He has his number. Stuff like that is what we're trying to do with that side of the business.
Yeah.
How is it? He brings up y'all have these relations. You mentioned Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Just y'all have Champion. How is it for you, like working with all these brands, especially like big brands? They're world renowned. Some of them, Yeah. So like, how has that been for you, and like, how does that challenge you to like, okay, we're Champion. How do I get to Nike? We're with Nike. How do I get to Louis Vuitton? Like, where does that challenge come in for you to like also help you? I mean, kids love Nike. They love designers. So like, how does that challenge you to like get to that next step for them?
Right. Also, before you answer that, I think Salvation Army is a good one to bring up too.
Yeah.
That process is exactly what he's talking about.
So I mean, we haven't started that one fully yet. What do you want me to say?
But like the pre-process, like like.
So I mean, everything starts with a conversation, right? It's figuring out if there's alignment. It's figuring out which guys are a good match. Like Jacob was saying earlier, it's not like we can just throw whatever guy we want on. It's about making sure that one, they're interested in doing it, they're going to take pride in doing it. Beyond that, their playing ability and the person they are off the field, and that matters a lot to a lot of these bigger brands like Salvation Army. They want good kids being aligned with that brand. Same thing with Champion. Like they don't want any guy that's not going to take it serious, any guy that's not going to hold himself to a high standard out in the public.
Or people who like the brand too. That's a big thing. Like
huge thing. But working with Salvation Army has been really interesting. I'm on a call with 20 of their team members, and I'm going to bat with all of them by myself. Jacob will get on sometimes, or Stefan too. But once you work with one company that size, they all kind of operate the same because it just comes down to project management. You know, they're always going to have a marketing rep. They're always going to have the project manager. They're going to have some type of director or executive on, and they all think the same. So once you've got one of those things mapped out, it's going to be similar. So you can come to that next meeting more prepared than you were for the last one. You're going to pick up something new from each company that you work with. I feel like that's a really big thing, making sure that you're learning through the process. And as long as we hit the deliverables we need to hit, collect the data we need to collect to show that it was a successful campaign, we can hit that next target even easier than the last one. So eventually we'll have Nike.
Yep, and like that's like you're saying, working with Salvation Army, working with Champion, all these people, right? This just roadmaps everything. I mean, it's even in a sense of like with the podcast for us, like when you get bigger guests on, it just makes the next guest a lot easier, whether that be your preparation and talking to them, being comfortable, or just even the ability, the credibility that you're building with your business and brand too.
100%. And also with the athletes. So we want
that too,
brands associated
100%.
with their guys. Like, Salvation Army is an extremely strategic partnership. And it's a great thing that we're doing for the guys because they're making all this money. We don't want them to forget what's most important. You know, the community, your family, giving back. It's not just about buying the flashy stuff. It's about being a part of something bigger than yourself.
Not even that, but like, so like the NFL, that's one of their biggest sponsors. These kids are playing football. Their goal is to go to the NFL. Yeah. So you already have a relation with Salvation Army. They already know that they can trust you to go out to the Toys for Tots and go to the high schools or the elementary schools to like show up and like do all that stuff that they do in the NFL. So like that's another good thing that y'all are doing. It's already getting ready for the next step of that in their career.
Salvation Army, they're like a tight-knit group, man. Like when we talk to them, they call themselves like the Army.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's literally that's how they talk about themselves. Yeah. But they're fantastic people. Yeah. Like they really believe in their mission and they're all bought in on the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, they're fantastic people. The whole time I've been working with them, nothing but good stuff to say about them. And they, like Jacob's saying, like they believe 150% in everything that they're about. When I was on the call with like all 20 of them, they were all singing the same tune. And, I told them we're trying to sing that same tune as well. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I can't wait for us to start that activation.
Nice. So when you go and do these deals for these kids, we'll just use, I don't know, Champion, for example. Is every Champion deal the same for the kid, or is it more of catered to like what they like and want to do within Champion?
So that's kind of a complicated question. So you're not asking about pay, you're asking about deliverables.
Correct.
Or even if like to add into that, like if you have an athlete that is of a certain caliber per se.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be situations where, for example, two guys we had in the movie, they had a little bit, they kickstarted the activation technically. We activated Champion while they were at the movie. So we did a behind-the-scenes shoot of them in some custom Champion pieces, their reverse weave outfits. And that launched the shoot. So some guys will have different opportunities. Like our best guys, they're going to want some different style content. And that's just because the influence they have, the reach they have. It's nothing to do with, someone's better than the other guy. But it just makes more sense as far as a marketing perspective. But all of our guys will have an opportunity to market with Champion.
Nice. And off camera, we talked about, this one question I was curious about. We talked about, the private jets. Quinn had one. I think Jackson Dart had one. Marcel just had one. Like, how do y'all, or I guess how do different NIL agencies like get these lucrative deals like a private jet? Like, everybody wants to say, I'm going to fly on the PJ. Come on, let's go. Where are you going to go? Right. So like, one, is it real? And two, like, how do they even like negotiate that?
Well, I think, it could be answered with the question, right? Have you seen Jackson Dart ride on a PJ? Have you seen these guys post that they're actually in these planes?
Yeah, no.
A lot of things in this space is publicity. It's a lot of perception.
Yeah, perception is huge. Yeah,
perception is huge. I think there's a little more to this. Whenever I see these posts, it's always like something tied to a charity or something. I think Marcel Reed had that tied to a charity. I don't know what the exchange is exactly. But I would say there's a PR play here. That's the value the brand's getting. Because guys, think about the math here, right? How much is it to rent a private jet?
More than I can afford.
A ton of money.
Right. All right. So let's say to go from here to LA, it costs you, I don't know, $30,000 for a small private jet, maybe more. Okay. is Marcel Reed going to get the brand $30,000 on a free flight?
Don't forget he's got to fly back.
$60,000. You think he's going to get $60,000? They're going to get $60,000 worth of marketing from one post?
No.
That means that at least someone would have to get. I mean, think about it. What's their product? They're selling private jets, so they're selling charter jets.
Yeah.
So that means someone would have. That means that someone from Marcel's following, one, can afford a jet rental, and two, they're gonna somehow click that link or click the call to action and book it through that, or maybe outreach to them directly because they saw the ad and book the jet. I mean. You're banking on
looking back, like who signed. It makes sense why they signed those athletes because of Quinn, Texas, Marcel, A&M.
Yeah, they have,
they have the following to like
alumni
who can afford that. So that does make sense. On they don't know my name, but Marcel's tied to me now. That they're gonna know who I am.
Quarterback of the school I went to 20 years ago. Like I have the money. I'm gonna go with him. I trust him now.
So they might have a deal where if they use their link or something and someone buys a jet, a charter, then Marcel might get a free ride or something. Who knows, right? But that's kind of how the brands think about it. It's like, all right, if we're gonna give him a free ride or whatever it may be, we got to get our money back and more.
Absolutely.
And from a marketing perspective, like those are going to be far and few in between, because like Jacob's saying, their followings, like the pool of influence that they have. So it's all based on the demographics. Like if you have a bunch of 18-year-olds following you, you're not getting a jet deal.
No.
Because an 18-year-old cannot afford a jet.
Right.
So
unless you got some rich parents.
Yeah.
I mean,
or streamer or something.
There's the off chance, but you'd have to pick a guy like those guys are like Manning, where they've got big money in their network and big money in the following.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Like I said, they attack the correct demographic so they can get their name exposed because they know that these alums or with Texas, some of these current family members can afford these things. I mean, I'm sure they have their own private jet, but that's why you attack it, because they can afford it. It makes sense.
Right.
And you had said something earlier in the pod that kind of related to a question that we brought off camera, but essentially, and kind of something you said too, talking about like maximizing NIL and this window that these players have, right? And then when they go to the NFL, they go to the NFL. You were saying these numbers get thrown out, 20%, whatever the numbers are. Why are essentially NIL agents getting a larger cut as opposed to like an NFL agent who traditionally gets like 3%?
Right. So that's a huge topic of discussion in our space. So there are agents out there, people who claim to be agents, who will go and sign an athlete for 20, 30%.
Some are taking 50.
Jesus Christ.
I've had athletes that we have signed.
50%?
Yeah, I've had athletes that we've signed that I've talked to, and I'm like, what do they have you at? They were previously at another agency, and they were signed at some ridiculous rate. So there's two rates in the industry. You have the marketing deal rate, which is like if I went and got an athlete and deal with like Papa John's, our agency's entitled to a percentage of that because we went, sought the deal, we negotiated the deal, and we fulfilled the deal for the athlete. So, we helped them fulfill it. So we're allocated a percentage, right? That's typically higher than the collective negotiation, fee.
Yeah.
For most agencies.
Yeah.
So, they'll take maybe 20% on the marketing end because the dollars are a lot less and there's more work and a different aspect.
For sure.
And then on the collective negotiation end, I mean, you have a lot of guys who tie those two things together. Like, there's some agents who will say, oh, well, the marketing and the collective thing are the same thing. So I want 20 or 30%. We separate it to make it clear.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 20, 30% is like fucking ridiculous. That like,
That's insane.
Yeah. I get that legally speaking, there's more work on that end when it comes to the contract side, because in the NFL, the contracts are standardized. Yeah. So you have like a contract that's typically, used, for guys, they're all the same, right? Like pretty much, when they're coming in from the draft, very similar contract. I think they have the NFLPA contract, like they have a contract issued. So in our space, that's not the case. In our space, every school has their own contract. And they had, this last portal, they had their collective contract, and now they have a rev share contract. So now you're dealing with 2 contracts. You're dealing with, negotiating the terms in those contracts, and you're also negotiating the compensation. So, you're dealing with more obstacles than if it was just a standardized agreement that every school has. You already know the ins and outs of it. It's quick. It's easier to do than, there's like clauses in there they can put. There's fine print they can put. It's like things you have to look out for. So I get why some people are charging, a lot more than 3%, but, a lot more to what point? Like 20, 30% is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even no matter how, if the contract was a 20-page contract, there's still no reason it should be 20%. But, I think there's reason to justify more than 3%.
Yeah. Also,
For sure. Yeah.
And also to consider, one, the contracts are ever changing because the landscape's ever changing. So it's not like you go talk to one school, you look at the contract, you come back around next year, and it's the same contract. No, it's already changed again. So you got to do like a full review.
Right.
In addition to that, the NFL money, 3% of 10, 15 million. You're doing good.
$100 million contracts.
You get 3% on 50,000, and you spend $5,000-$10,000 in legal fees.
Yeah.
You're kind of in a tough spot right there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's different when you're working, with a lot bigger names, but 3% is not covering even the cost of doing the labor for smaller contracts, even if you're talking about like 100,000.
Yeah, let's say the average college athlete, just throwing it out there, 500,000. Let's just say that's a number, 500,000. So let's say you take 3% of that. You're 15 grand. All right.
Yeah.
If you're an attorney and it takes you, let's say, with the negotiations, the time it takes to get online, talk to them, go back and forth with the client, and then, do the actual contract worth, let's say it's 10 hours. The idea is that, it has to be worth your time to do it too. So I don't know if 3% would cut it, for a lot of people.
For sure. Yeah.
And then one thing about our percent is we're very confident in charging it because we always get our players paid more. Every time.
We're able to, relate this back to our client, and we have actual data on what their worth is in the market, and ultimately the client decides what they want to do. They have the options, but it's our job to get them those options and then, make sure that they're briefed, that we do our due diligence. We talk to the coaching staff. We make sure that this is like a legitimate thing, and also that, what they're saying matches with what they're going to do with the athlete,
Yeah, also, our experience is just unparalleled. Like between this portal and last portal, we did about 100 contracts.
Yeah.
I'd like you to find someone else in the space that's done that.
And like 17 million, just
would want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, you have a lot of guys in this industry who are frauds.
Yeah.
You have a lot of guys who want to wear the suits, play pretend
In it
agent.
for the money.
They pick up the phone, and they're going to, I'm an agent, all this.
There's a lot of work.
No legal team.
Yeah.
They're
no
clowns.
experience. They've got one client. They've only ever had one client. Or maybe they had 4. They lost 3. Now they got 1.
And they convince these athletes that 20% is acceptable.
Yes.
And that's fraudulent. And those kind of guys should be stopped. But
That's insane.
what we're doing here is not that.
Yeah.
Again, we advise our clients sometimes not to take,
Like you literally told me that, like verbatim.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, hey, maybe going to the school again, more money may not be the answer that you're looking for if you're trying to develop to go to the league.
Yeah.
And that's just a conversation we have to have with them. But there are other agents who are like, oh shit, I get 20% of $500,000. Take the money, man. Take the money. Go for it. And it's like, man.
It sucks too. Like, you're getting that money because of them, because of their athletic ability of what they can do.
But a beautiful thing that we do, when they're done with the portal, we get them in touch with our financial advisors. The percent they pay us, because the way we do it is a deduction. We're also saving them money.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. We're trying to, we want their money to make the money and save as much money as possible through any of those situations.
All right. So we're talking about the employment thing. So that's kind of what I want to leeway into. So a big conversation in our space is whether or not these athletes should be employees. A lot of people think these athletes should be employees of the institution. I don't necessarily agree. I don't disagree, but I don't agree. I think it's a tough conversation to have because when you're an employee, it's a completely different relationship than what it is right now with these student athletes, right? I mean, you're talking about you can get fired. You have different obligations, responsibilities, and duties. It's like, I see why there's an employee argument, but at the same time, there's a lot of benefit in not being an employee. Because if you have, a situation where a player is getting paid $800,000, $1 million in NIL money, and they're able to create an LLC, create an entity, and put that money through their entity. So like the entity owns their rights, their NIL rights, and the institution or the collective's paying them. They now can take the benefit of having that company expense out their expenses, basically write-offs. So like Caleb Williams tried doing this when he went to the league. He was like, hey, pay my LLC, don't pay me. Because you're paying income tax, right? You put through your company takes the money, and then you can buy stuff for your company, which owns your NIL. So anything you do for your NIL, like going to photo shoots, going to donor dinners, going to brand deals, anything, you can expense those costs out. If you have to take a flight, guess what? Expense it out. It saves you a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And it's like no one's talking about this. You got all these guys on Twitter who are like, oh, this is just a masquerade for employment. Well, okay, I see your point, to a degree with what you're saying, but the reality is there's like a fucking El Dorado here for these guys. Like they can really get more out of these contracts than NFL guys can get from their contracts because their money is personal income.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's something that the financial advisor that we work with, he's setting up for our guys. One of the guys we just transferred, he was waiting for his, got him in contact with our guy. He advised him get the LLC set up. He waited to collect his first payment until the LLC was active, and he's good to go. And that's something they can carry on with him. He's probably going to go to the league. He can take that with him to the league. He can take that with him to a professional world. It's just another thing we're doing to give these guys another leg up.
It just sounds like people are complaining. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like they are employees. You get an offer.
Yeah.
That's your acceptance letter. You sign that. You're signing your offer letter.
Right.
So you're an employee. You're playing on the field. You're supposed to be doing your job. If you don't do your job,
right,
what happens? Back of the line. Got to transfer out because they're cutting down your scholarship. So they're cutting down your pay. So like,
I don't know about that take though, because
I would say
you say the same thing for a music artist that gets signed. I don't know with a label. Is that an employee? They're providing a form of entertainment through athletic ability.
I would say you're a contractor.
The contractors are allowed to have LLCs. They're not technically.
Yeah, I mean you could have the money go through your
an employee. I mean, you are working like.
Well, because
it's more like 1099.
I'm not saying that they're an employee, but I'm saying like you can make the employee argument and visualize, like say you can look at it like as an employee.
Yes.
Technically.
Well, yeah, there's definitely like, don't get me wrong. That's why I don't disagree or agree with it because, I mean, look, they're told what to wear, they're told when to be somewhere. They're told like what to eat, what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, but is it a duck? It's pretty fucking close, but. The thing is, a lot of these guys who push this employee model, they're like, oh, it's like the NFL. That's the one thing I disagree with. This is not the NFL. Like, I get that looks like employees, but it's not the NFL exactly. It's not like that.
Yeah, you can't get. I don't know, but you can't get like fined.
I think the school gets fined, right?
Yeah, I see a lot of GMs come from the NFL, and they become the GM of a school. They don't last very long. There's a lot of turnover in the GM role in the college space. Mm-hmm. The reason being is that they're not used to anything like this. I mean, this is insanity for a lot of them.
Wild West.
And I feel for them. Because think about it. You're negotiating with a guy, or with let's say an athlete's dad, typically. That's pretty common, or uncle or whoever. And, you talk to one person, the dad, and he's negotiating and you agreed a price. And next thing you know, he's out of the picture and you got a new person, his uncle or cousin or friend, comes in and wants to play agent, is now negotiating a new deal, which you already agreed to another deal with someone else. And it's like, it's just not structured enough for them to have rules to play by. And they're like, what the hell, Yeah. And it's nothing like NFL free agency, I think. I think a lot of the guys try to compare it to that, but this is a completely different animal, And I think in that aspect, it also, is similar in the way they're getting compensated. They're getting compensated for marketing deals, for marketing things. I mean, a lot of these contracts, in all these contracts, they're not saying that you're getting paid to play. They're saying you're getting paid to do these marketing deals. Now, these marketing deals so happen to correlate with, if you're a good player, you're going to get paid more, right? But also at the same time, if you're a good player, you're going to have more of a following, you're going to have more engagement, and you're going to be able to, get more deals and more money out of that too. So it's like, it does go hand in hand to some degree. That's why I don't think it's exactly like an employment model where it's a transaction where, hey, you're playing and you're getting a part of the revenue share and that's it. It's like, hey, you're playing and part of the revenue share. Yeah, that part exists, but also there is that other aspect to it.
Yeah, I think it's more set up like closer to like an influencer being paid by a brand for a certain amount of time. Like the influencer is not an employee of the brand.
Like we're getting to a point where it's like the institutions are paying the athletes. So I see that argument for the employment, but like who's the institution, who's the NCAA to come in and tell the athlete like, hey, if Joe Bob, the donor, wants to give you $1 million, you can't do it.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's
the
like
thing too. There's like no game checks. Like in the NFL, you're getting game checks too. Like you're getting paid out per game. So you miss a game, you're losing money. Like that's not happening with these deals. You're normally getting probably paid up front or it's broken up or whatever. But usually they're probably 100% guaranteed, right? Like in the NFL, like guys sign contracts all the time to where they got to fulfill these obligations. You got to play these years in your contract to finish getting paid out, like stuff like that. That's more structured like like an employee.
So the NCAA, like their worst nightmare is for this to become an employment model because it's no longer an amateur like model. Yeah. It's now a professional model if they get paid as employees. A lot of people think it's going to become that.
Is this still amateur model?
Huh?
Is it still an amateur model since they're getting paid, or would you say it's like semi-pro?
So right now, it's still categorized as an amateur model. NCAA is still, defending that it's an amateur sport. It's not professional because they're getting paid for their marketability. That's why they're trying to put an end to these collectives. They're trying to put an end to this pay for play because they don't want an argument for employment.
That makes sense.
That's what I was saying. It's closer to an influencer being paid by a brand than a company paying employees.
See, I think the way they've done the settlement is, it's like you're trying to put the genie back in the bottle. You can't do that because, like I said, you have these guys who are used to getting paid a lot of money, and if you come in, you're like, oh, we only have $15 million. That's all we're going to be able to pay you with. Guys are going to jump ship. They're going to go to other schools, and that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, the talent's going to be spread everywhere. Yeah.
Because you just create a lifestyle for yourself based on that income. And now you're like, think about it. If you're getting paid, let's just say, practically you're getting paid $100,000 a year and you cut your income down to 50.
Yeah.
Your whole life's going to change.
100%.
You got a car note, you got a lease, you got all this stuff. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
That could be a guy getting paid $800 gets cut down to like $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a dramatic.
I think it'll be, if anything, like half, but like a lot of the guys that we've negotiated, we've taken that into account and we've talked to schools and we've assessed that
future proof.
Yeah, we're like, all right, this is reasonable within the guidelines of the 15 million. But there are guys who we had that are making significant 7-figure contracts, and it's like, dude, there's no way they're going to pay you this. If they're going to claim that it's only 15 million and that's it, because you would take like over 1/15 of their budget. I mean, you have to play 3 positions at that point. You know what I mean?
And if you're not a premium position, you're not a QB, tackle, DN, like receiver, not going to get that either. You had your question, Bert?
Yeah. So, how rare, if often, is it that someone sends you a deal and you're like, yeah, this looks good, just take this out, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And what's the shortest and longest negotiations y'all had when constructing a deal?
Okay, so the first part of the question, are you talking about brand deals or collective contracts?
You're talking about the portal, right?
The portal.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the question again?
How rare, if even, is it that someone sends you over something, you're like, yeah, overall this looks pretty good, just one minor revision, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's that's never happened. Just one minor revision. What happened with this winter portal? A lot of schools sent an MOU. So an MOU is a memorandum of understanding. So it's saying, okay, at some point we're going to send you a contract, and these are like the general outline of what we're going to have in the contract. And that I would be like, okay, because the way they would say in the fine print, this MOU is non-binding, So it's like, all right, whatever. At some point we're going to get a contract and we're going to review it and we're going to have to decide on this. But right now there's nothing to negotiate because this just says, it's like an IOU $400,000. All right, great. So in that case, yeah, I mean, there's been instances where, we've looked at an MOU and we're like, all right, this is good for now. And then we'll revisit once the contract is sent to us. Now, negotiation timetables, vary. Some institutions are very quick. They're very, again, I think it also comes down to the value of the player. If they value the player and they're worried he's going to jump ship and they don't get their shit together, he's going to go. Yeah, I've had it where I had one school get like the assistant attorney, the second to the attorney general of the state, in an email thread with me about the contract, because they wanted to get it done and it was part of the Rev Share stuff. So, I don't know if they're trying to flex or what, but I was like, okay. And they were trying to push it along ASAP. And then you have some programs who, we got to go back and forth. They got, talk to, the tooth fairy, talk to, fucking, everybody in the building, and they eventually get back to me, weeks and weeks later. So the negotiations themselves, talking about the money, it happens, over probably 3 or 4 phone calls at most, usually 1 or 2. And that happens pretty quickly. It doesn't take long. The thing that takes a long time is going through the actual nitty-gritty of the contract, because there's a lot of stuff thrown in there that you have to dissect through. You have to really understand what these things mean in context to the industry. So a lot of these attorneys who try to come in here, this is the thing about lawsuits down the line. Our attorney, our partner who's an attorney, has actually sued people. He's actually been to court. He's actually went all 9 yards. A lot of these guys who are these Twitter lawyers who had never actually practiced, but fucking, are giving advice, they've never been in a fucking courtroom. It's like me telling my guy how to play football and I never play football. Why would he take advice from me? That's the thing about it as well. If you're going to give legal advice, you should probably have the background and have had the experience in the courtroom to know, if these things go to court, what's going to stick, what's not going to stick, and what's actually, legitimate here, and what the arguments are if it does go the distance. So I think that's, a big thing as well. I mean, you got fraud agents and you got not fraud attorneys, but you got guys who are jumping in,
trying to establish themselves as experts.
But they never went to fucking court in their life. It's just
it's all theory. No practice.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what we're seeing. I mean, to be a good representative in this space, you have to have, instincts, you have to have, the ability to negotiate and talk, but also you have to be consistent in other aspects as well. You have to, go above and beyond for your clients. That's what we really do. And you have to have the experience. And it's tough because there's not a lot of people who have done this in the past. You know what I mean? You literally have to put yourself into these positions. But, we've had to send demand letters. We've had to, get to a point where, our attorney, our partner, our attorneys are, going to sue a school, sue a collective because they're not following, what they agreed to. And it's serious. And it's not, like a joke. It's 100% serious. But, at least when I tell my clients we're going to do that, we have someone who has experience in doing that. We have someone who's went the distance and done it.
We've got someone that the collective and schools don't want to fight with too.
Right.
Yeah.
And the schools have something to lose. The collectives, you talk about these donors, they have an LLC created, they have protections. You can't sue them individually, sue an LLC.
Yeah.
What are you going to get out of it, right? But when you talk about the institutions now have a lot to lose. They have a lot to lose. So, you're talking about, you have to have a legal group who's willing to go up against general counsel for these institutions where they have an infinite bankroll. These institutions, they have so much money, they can go the distance and fight for however long.
Yeah, however long it takes.
How many of these fucking NIL attorneys can keep up with that?
Yeah.
How many?
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna weed out some people, I think, too. As this thing progresses, it's gonna weed out people. More people will join too. You're gonna see, with opportunity is gonna come people who try to reap, right? But you reap what you sow. Right. So if you sow, good business and you're, doing the right things, you're going to, reap that. If you're, creating this fraudulent perception of yourself and trying to create this narrative of someone, that, create this false narrative of yourself or create this idea that you can do these things when you actually have never done them, you're going to reap that, and good luck with that.
All right. So you can just introduce yourself. So we're sitting down with Will. Just kind of talk us through general what you do for A&P?
Dude, you gotta do Will Scott.
Will Scott.
We call him Will Scott. Like
Will Scott.
That was a thing when I first hired him and brought him to the office. I would always call him the first name and last name.
Let's go.
And for some reason, I just I'd call him Frankie, not Frankie Tricomi, but with him, it's just like Will Scott.
It just kind of like rolls off the tongue. Yeah, it's simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my name is Will Scott. I'm the director of scouting at A&P Sports. Been with the company since January of 2024.
Okay.
And then took over as director of scouting in November of last year. So I was originally on the partnership side, kind of similar to what Frankie's doing, and then shifted over to the scouting and acquisitions side of things.
And I guess with the scouting, how difficult has that been? Like, are you just like watching football all the time, watching tape? Like, how do you go about your process of finding, people to add on to the agency, or, just kind of assessing the market?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with high school, absolutely, we will look at tape, because with the college scouting, we don't have access to the same film that college coaches have access to.
It's hard to get.
One day I think we will.
Yeah.
That's something that we've worked on. It's something
I
that's
need
been
that
frustrating.
too.
So we had to get creative with what we've done on the scouting side in terms of scouting college athletes. I'm guessing you guys have heard of the movie Moneyball.
Yeah.
Great
So,
movie.
analytics taking over, and it's kind of what the Astros did with that World Series roster, is they focused it on analytics, and that's how they kind of built their team. So that's kind of what we've done with the scouting side with us, is we've looked at analytics, because we don't have access to that film that college coaches have access to, but we do have access to the analytics side, and that's kind of been what we've done on the scouting. So, for example, Bernard Gooden went to LSU. He was the number 1 ranked defensive tackle in the portal and the number 1 ranked overall player in the portal. You look at him, he's 6'1", 280. You might say, oh man, like he's too small to play in the SEC. What I looked at is he had an 88.7 run defense grade. Perfect. We signed him, kind of found out that he wanted to play big-time college football. He makes the decision to enter the portal, ends up as the number 1 overall player in the portal, just based on the fact that I saw that he had an 88.7 grade in terms of run defense. But also he's a TFL machine. So I think some teams and maybe some other agencies that were looking at him are like, he's too small, playing the SEC. You know who also is 6'1", 280? Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
One of the best players of all time. So I'm looking at production. I'm looking at snap count. Snap count's been a really big thing for us. Analytics, all that. That's kind of what we incorporated.
You have to understand how these teams look at these guys, right? Some of them are looking just at stats, statistics. Some of them are looking at them like, all right, what's their attributes? How tall? What do they weigh? Wingspan? All these things. It just depends on the coaching staff, right? So like everyone has an opinion, and a lot of these agents who like rep these guys, they might pass on guys because they want to take them to the league and they write them off because the attributes aren't what they need to be for the league. But we look at them, we look at them through different lenses because we know what the GMs are looking at different schools. So it's not just with that focus for the NFL; it's with the focus of maximizing today.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it through a perspective that the coaches are supposed to look at it through. And I feel like that does help you all a lot, because when you go talk to another coach or you go talk to another brand deal, like you have these numbers already in front of you. Like, this is the number 1 overall player. This is a guy who's people are coming after. This is who they're calling my phone about. You have to like sell the deal. And then at the same time for you, to the coaches, like, this is where he compares that for the tackle for losses for last season. He's top 3 in the nation. This is his run stop defense. It's top 1% in the nation. Like, you're already looking at it through a GM perspective. So that gives y'all the upper hand on getting great kids. And then how do you go about getting that info for the kids?
In terms of outreach?
No, like in looking at their stock.
Sure. We have multiple sites that we use, right? I think we're fortunate that there's a lot of access, right? To those numbers that we just discussed.
We use what a lot of coaches use.
Right?
We're not like we're not using
PFF and
we have access to a bunch of software we're able to use, but we also have our own system internally to value these guys. So like we have the history, we know how much they've been getting paid. we're able to give a really good range. It's fairly accurate for a lot of our players. So we're able to, take into consideration their player value and produce that value. So when we go negotiate, obviously we're bringing up the fact, tackle for loss. We're bringing up, how much playing time, snaps athlete has had. But we're also, able to, back that up with a number by saying, hey, this is what our database is saying. And we've negotiated, 17 million in the last 2 portals. So I think, Will does a phenomenal job at scouting these guys. He looks at the film and he's able to dissect it and give us the input we need to really highlight that in negotiations, right? Because when you talk to a GM, they'll use everything in the book. They'll be like,
Right.
For instance, right now I'm renegotiating a deal for a guy, and the big thing for the GM is it's a freshman. He hasn't seen him in pads. He hasn't seen him play. But I'm like, dude, who the fuck do you have in the room? You got 5 guys in the room. One guy, and we're talking about a tackle here, offensive tackle. One guy you got is 280, 6'7", 280 for a tackle. Might be fast, but buddy, he's gonna get blown over. And then you got the other guy, who's a starter, senior. Okay, I get why you're paying him because he's your main dude. I mean, he's fucking day one. The guy behind him, look at his tape. Every play gets blown up. And then you got a kid you brought in, you give him 40 grand. The reason I know he's getting 40 grand is like, we'll talk to him and call them. We're trying to sign him. So we know he's getting 40 grand. So it's like, our guy is going to be the next guy up.
Yeah.
And we know that too. So, we're able to kind of put all the pieces together and then go to the table and be like, all right, man, like this is what it's going to be. Otherwise, if you don't see the value in it, then he's going to have to go explore options.
2-part question for me. One, I guess, how does somebody get started in your role? And 2, how do you, when you're in your role, how do you start? Like, we're like fresh season, new season, or season just ended, portals coming up. Some people made bowl games, some people didn't. Like, where do you already have names that y'all already looking for? Like, oh, I want to, this is a guy I want to get from watching them all season? Or it's like, okay, let me see who did the best this season that's in the portal, and where do you start on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So during the season, we're looking for guys that are kind of flying under the radar. They're going to be very valuable at the end of the season. Cam Vaughn, great example of that. He's someone at Jacksonville State that was maybe a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, if that. He goes to Jacksonville State, doesn't even play his first year there, redshirts. Second year, he's their number 1 wide receiver, has, I think, an 1,000-yard year, 8 touchdowns. He gets in the portal. He's one of the more popular receivers in the portal.
Production's king.
Remember that name. He just went to West Virginia.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be
yeah.
all-conference guy over there as a sophomore, which is fantastic. So during the season, I think we're looking for guys like that. And then you just said it, in the offseason, it's kind of a different approach. What we're looking for right now is we're thinking about their valuation at the end of this season. For example, we just signed an offensive lineman from West Virginia earlier this week. Right now, he's a backup offensive lineman. Well, he's going to be the starting offensive lineman in 2026, and we'll be able to negotiate a starting level contract for him after this year, assuming that he gets the production that I think he's going to get.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking for right now. Jacob said it earlier. Right now, we're not doing NFL representation. We just do college representation. So it wouldn't make sense for us to sign a guy that's going into a senior year. Makes a lot of sense for us to sign a guy that's in a sophomore year, that got some production as a freshman, and it's going to break out this year. I think Micah Ford is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Starting running back at Stanford, 400 snaps as a true freshman. He'll be the guy this year.
We've signed a lot of good guys this offseason.
Yeah.
So since the end of the spring portal, we've really bunkered down and signed, guys who we believe are going to have, a breakout year.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. Like, we want guys who are going to go and put it on tape, have the production. And I think Will's done a phenomenal job at really dissecting their game and determining if they're undervalued or not.
Is there like a cap on athletes y'all have? Like, we can only hold with our bandwidth 200 athletes.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we have to look at how many we can actually service, right? So, like, not every athlete we have will be negotiated in the winter portal, right? We're going to have, majority, but some of them, their contracts or their current schools will expire in the winter or in the spring. and some guys don't want to transfer until the spring, so that's fine, right? So, but the vast majority, I would say 75% of those athletes are going to be negotiated in the winter. So, between all of us, we were able to do what? How many contracts did we do?
So we did 44 renegotiations and 53 portal contracts.
In 2 portals. So, we could have done, I think, we did what, 60 athletes in the winter?
Right.
We
Now,
probably,
granted, some of those renegotiations, we did one in the winter and then another one in the spring.
yeah, we probably could have done maybe another 60.
Sure.
And it wouldn't have, really affected us. We would have been able to do another 60. We had the bandwidth. By the time then the winter portal, we were already wrapping it up.
Yeah.
And then the spring portal is so different because spring portal is so much more slower. Like it takes
There's way less movement.
Yeah,
Usually.
I mean, we had Dan Murphy out here from ESPN. He kind of saw firsthand what it's like, and it's just so much more slower. Like the first day of the portal opening in the winter, it's like chaos. It's like Twitter's blowing up. Calls are happening nonstop. We're
Seeing tweets left and right.
Especially for the SEC too, because they have the rule where if you transfer in the spring, you can't play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you transfer interconference in the spring, you cannot play
in the fall.
In the fall for that team.
Right. So there is some roadblocks that I think don't make it as attractive for guys to transfer in the spring, and it affects how fast the market moves.
So I got 2 more questions. One of them is, you guys were in the past have represented some like basketball athletes and things like that. Are you guys looking to focus on other sports, especially because we just saw Nigel Kennedy get that crazy contract with Texas Tech as the pitcher there? So are you guys looking to expand in anything outside of football?
You're asking the right question to the right guy.
Well, so it's funny you say that. We were about 3 days into the basketball portal opening, and you walk into my office and you're like, "Hey, let's get basketball going." I'm like, "Let's freaking go, man!" So started to get on the phone with guys. They were already in the portal. Now that's kind of half the battle. It's like they're already in the portal. We know they want to go to a new spot. We don't have to convince them to go in the portal. And by the way, we'll never tell a player, "Hey, hit the portal." Like we'll renegotiate with their current school. But for these basketball guys, I mean, they're just constantly on the move. It is way different with basketball. I mean,
Completely different market.
Yeah.
Braxton Bayless, we just transferred him to Arkansas Little Rock. He'll be one of the highest paid players in that conference. And I think that's his 4th school. So that's pretty normal for basketball. And so, we signed a couple guys that were already in the portal. Luckily, the Final Four was about an hour away. Went down to San Antonio. I was walking into bars, just shaking hands with coaches. Mark Few from Gonzaga. The new McNeese coach. The new NC State coach, Will Wade. I was just shaking as many hands as possible. I think got maybe 100 contacts, that week. So we were able to transfer 3 players. We have a couple good young guys on our roster right now. But the basketball division is certainly something that we're looking to expand.
Yeah, I mean, we've done very well in football, very, very well. We dabble a little bit in basketball this season. We've built a good foundation. These guys are represented. They've gotten very lucrative contracts. They've had probably some of the best contracts we've seen, out there. I mean, really, there's not any type of liquidated damages, any type of things that would hinder their ability to transfer. And also the compensation has been phenomenal. I mean, we've really negotiated top dollar for these guys based on their market value. So I think the results we've gotten have created a good foundation. We have a lot of contacts, more than we did previously. I think basketball is something we're going to dive into more. Just basketball, it's a different market. You have a lot more like handlers. That's what people call them in our space, where you have like a guy who's influencing these athletes to make decisions who shouldn't be, like typically. Sometimes they should, but really they don't need to be in the picture. And these athletes are taking their advice. And, most of the time it's bad. It's bad advice. Basketball, the agents work differently too. A lot of the agents who sign basketball guys, they'll like loan them money. And it's like, here's like $50,000. You can't leave me ever.
I got a text from a parent the other day of a basketball player that asked if we were going to pay him a signing bonus.
Yeah, the expectations are a little different.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't pay any signing bonuses.
Right.
right? Like what we do is we'll get you an NIL deal and we can get you one when you sign.
Right.
And that's kind of like your signing bonus. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and give you 50. I mean, I'm
Like,
not
you're not going to front.
I'm not trying to create that relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not, a bank. I'm not going to loan you money, right? Now, if there's an instance where something happens or something, with a family and we're already have a relationship, we can talk. But the reality is that, there's no signing bonuses for what we're doing. Like we're bringing you connections, we're bringing you NIL deals, we're building your brand, we're doing things that are going to go beyond, the signing bonus. Because that agent that you sign the signing bonus with, he's taking it easy for the rest of the year and he's collecting on that contract. And that's it.
Do y'all think it has to do with like the I don't know what you call it, like basketball? They only have to be there for 1 year and they can go to the draft.
One and done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it just is like goes around that? Is like the one and done, two and dones? Because like football, baseball,
It's kind of like baseball,
softball.
right? Yeah.
Well, baseball, if you commit to a division school, you have to play at least 3 years.
Right.
Or you could be 21 years old, enter the draft. If you go JUCO in baseball, you just have to be 18.
Right.
Oh, technically 16, but you're 18, and then you can go to the draft.
Yeah.
So baseball, football, 3 years minimum or 21. Basketball, it's one and done.
Well, if you're good enough in basketball or baseball, you can just go to the draft.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think with basketball, like if you're like, I mean, granted, not a lot of 18-year-olds go to the draft, right? But like, if you have that capability, like you could go.
Or do you think that's like where that signing bonus
Yeah.
like stems from a lot? Because like in baseball,
Probably.
you don't.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, you're going to the draft. You don't go to college.
Right.
Basketball, you don't have to go to college, but like you have to go to
Typically,
college
yeah.
because you can't. You have to wait 1 year
Yeah. You have to go to college.
after
or,
high school to
play
go to the
overseas or
NBA.
the G League.
So that's why they made the other league, like the elite league, or LaMelo played in overseas that 1 year, then went to the NBA. So is it? You think is it something like that? Is why like that basketball stigma's there?
I think too that agencies that are offering their signing bonuses, they're doing that because they want to rep them when they
Go to
enter
the league.
draft
Yeah.
and are in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right.
That
Yeah,
attachment.
yeah, they're trying to just like lock in. And
Yeah.
like, hey, we were here from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to pay us the money back with interest.
Yeah.
So when you get that big check, write us our piece first. And it's like that's not the relationship I want with my clients.
No doubt.
It's just not what we're doing.
Last thing for me, what would be one piece of advice you'd give to athletes just looking to maximize their NIL?
Sign with AMP agency.
That's good advice right there.
There we go.
Proven model.
We're
Yeah.
looking for top tier talent.
Yeah.
It's like I think we've gotten to a point as an agency, especially on the football side,
Right.
that we rep some of the best players in the country. So we can afford to be a little bit selective with who we represent. I mean, this past spring portal, we had the number one ranked player in 5 different positions, right? So that's what we're looking for, and give Jacob and Stefan a lot of credit because they've built this thing up to where we're signing some of the top players in the country.
Yeah, the number one advice I give athletes is, be a critical thinker.
Right.
Don't just listen to what you hear and like take it for what it is. Really dive in and understand, what this system is and what is in place. Because, I would say don't trust anyone and critically think for yourself and come up with your own, resolution, your own solution to the problem. And if you think you need an agent, go sign with an agent. If you think you can handle it yourself, handle it yourself. But you have to understand the problem. You have to understand what this system is, right? Because, I feel like the biggest issue with problems is people don't understand the actual problem. You know what I mean? Like 50% of the solution is understanding the problem, right? So I think these athletes, they're 18, they're coming into this space, their parents are heavily involved. They come in as freshmen, they hear things, they don't really understand what this all is. And, they're trying to do the best they can. And the only people are taking advice from are like coaches and other people that have been through this. And, sometimes they get good advice, sometimes they get bad advice. And I think, just really critically think through everything and assess, everyone beyond face value. Really, think about why people are telling you things and who it's coming from. That's going to be very important for any collegiate athlete that's, incoming right now.
Nice.
Actually, one question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And I think this kind of relates to all 3 of y'all.
Yeah.
Jacob, for you, like starting 2 startups, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give somebody
Yeah.
who's an entrepreneur, a sales professional, and you two negotiating deals? Frank, if you want to hop in after Will answers, but like, what's one piece of advice you can give sales professionals or somebody who has to do a lot of communication with other people? What's one piece of advice y'all would give?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest piece of advice I could give any business owner or anyone starting a company is do not quit. I know it sounds cliche, but like that's the key. Like you have to keep going, and you know it's tough sometimes. Like there are moments where you're gonna go almost broke.
Yeah.
There are moments where you're gonna be like sweating. You don't know how you're gonna, what your next move is gonna be. But you have to be consistent. You have to wake up each day and do it. And if you have expectations of, like, you got to be able to manage your expectations as an individual. You have to understand that people may not see the value today, but they will see the value eventually. And you have to be consistent in what you're doing and believe in it. And you can't quit. That's how you're going to be successful, in my opinion, as a business owner. And, hiring good people is important. You want to have a good team. You want to have a good culture. I think that's like it's a big problem for a lot of owners, a lot of people who own a company. It's like, how do you hire good people? It's not like a skill you can go, just get.
Trial and error.
Yeah, it's trial and error. I mean, a lot of things, in life are trial and error. And it's, I've been very fortunate with the people I've hired. I think, we've done a very good job of creating the culture here. And it comes from the top too. So, consistency, no matter how talented you are, no matter what you got, if you're consistent and you show up every day and you give it 100%, you will beat anyone that's talented. So I think, if you want to be a business owner, you want to be successful, that's what it takes.
The question was advice for people maybe getting into this. Is that right?
Or sales professionals, somebody who's
sure.
negotiating deals.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and I have two things, but I think number one is just be genuine. Like this is a really cutthroat industry. It's important just to be a nice person, honestly, and just, be yourself. And I think that's really important because, people can kind of see through that.
Yep.
The second thing is trust the process, right? I had thought about being a sports agent since I was a senior in high school. Couldn't stop thinking about it, even though I was chasing an entirely different career. I was in sports broadcasting for a long time. Went to college, did that, was doing that in high school. Woke up one morning, said, screw it. I'm going to chase the agency dream. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my master's degree. And a lot of people at my alma mater, Syracuse University, were like, oh, man, like, you're crazy. Like, this is the Harvard of sports broadcasting. Like, what are you doing? You got this degree. And I just really felt like it was a now or never thing for me. So it was actually a funny story I give Frankie a hard time about. But the day that I quit my broadcasting job in Dallas, I went on LinkedIn, messaged a bunch of agents, got in touch with this one NFL guy, and I said, hey, what do I need to do, like, to get to kind of where you're at? And he said, you should do NIL. It's taken off. You don't need to take a test like you do for the NFL. That'd be a great start for you. So I Googled NIL agencies in Texas, and A&P came up. Emailed A&P, never heard back. I was like, okay. 6 months go by. I'm at Arizona State. I'm looking for opportunities there, doing 15 credits. I think it actually might have been 18 credits that first semester, and was really discouraged. And then out of nowhere, I get an email from Frankie saying, hey, can we interview you? After 6 months from that initial email, changed my life. So everything is going to work out if you just kind of trust the process, work hard, be a good person. That's the advice that I would have.
Oh, I do want to have one more thing. I do think, like, for me and Stefan at least, we'll say the same thing. I think trusting in God has been a big thing for us. Like, we've put our faith, like, at the forefront of this. Like, we've at one point traveled the country and we gave the athletes 100% of the deals we closed. We took like $100 PR fee, and that's what funded our trip to go around the country for 1 year. And, we made like 36 grand, which was great, but we gave all the, like, we just take a cut on these percentages for the marketing deals. And we give it all to the athletes, just trusting that God would, help us do that. And, ever since then, I think that's when the company really started to excel. I mean, that was laying the foundation for what we have now. So our faith has been a big part of this as well.
Yeah, going off of that, I told Frankie the story the other day. I don't even think you know the story, but it was New Year's Eve 2023. I mean, I had a really crappy year. I mean, it was a really rough year. I made a career change, or at least was trying to make a career change. Was back in school at age 25 after being, out of school for a few years, and like looked up at the stars. I remember like seeing like Jupiter and just saying a prayer like, God, like please like do something in my life. Next week I was hired by him. So I think going off what you said, like my faith too has been extremely important. God's in control. Like even during the rough days, like that's something to think about. I'm reading Psalms right now. There's a lot of good stuff in there about some of that stuff. So yeah, I'd echo that.
And we go to the same church. So like we're here, like we're like a family. Here.
Yeah,
I mean, like I know
love
people
that.
say that about their companies.
Yeah.
But we actually we hang out together. We'll go to like Chalmers together. We'll go to the same church and stuff. So it's a
Have y'all
tight-knit
been to
group.
Chalmers?
Yeah, we
We just went
You
recently.
got like the Chalmers advocate here, dude. He'll convince you to go to Chalmers.
Yeah.
He should get sponsored by him. He needs an NIL
yeah.
deal with Chalmers.
Get that
If Chalmers
going.
is
We'll get
watching
that
this, he needs an
Yeah.
NIL deal.
yeah. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I can get in on that. I got some fire for you.
Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just so you know, Will, it took 6 months because I looked through hundreds of resumes. We were looking for the best, and guess what? We found it. That's why you're here, bud.
Frankie does have a talent for hiring people. Like I will say that Frankie is like one of the best people at hiring people. Like he's done a really, really
Intuition.
good job. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you're like rolling fucking dice in there or something. Just if it lands on 6, I'm calling this
Intuition.
person.
The secret is you get 100 resumes, you take all the names, you put them in a hat. You fucking
Yeah.
So he has this AI.
Put
he
it
has
on
this market
AI.
value. And if market value. So
GPT. Which one is the best?
All right, okay. So to answer your question, and I'm gonna hit directly on the sales portion because I've seen this true, and the studio and all the other stuff I've done. Everyone's focused on finding their solution, when in reality, whoever you're approaching, whether it's an athlete, a brand, you should be focused on finding their problem, and how can you solve that to where it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And a great example of this is, and we could look at assigning an athlete or a brand, but I'll do a brand. Is when you go to these brands, you don't just be like, hey, give my guy free stuff and pay him money. No, like look deep into their brand. Who are they? What do they do? What's their audience? Okay, you look at this brand, they're lacking a youth demographic. Hey, we've got over 100 athletes. We notice you guys don't have a strong reach in the youth demographic. Between our 100 athletes, we've got 2-3 million followers, 50% of their demographics from 20 and under. We can provide this value. This is what we can do for you. This is what we'd like to see on your end in exchange for that. That conversation is going to go 100 times smoother than coming to them with nothing and saying, give me this.
Yep.
And it go for selling a car or whatever. Take this car, give me your money. What do you need? What kind of car do you need? You're looking for economical, like understanding their situation. That just goes across the board with the athletes. What do you need? Instead of just sign with us, we're the best. What do you need? Do you have financial advice? Do you have financial advisors? What's your current contract look like? Are you happy with everything? Is there anything you're unhappy with? Okay, you're unhappy with these things. Well, we can help you here, here, and here. If you sign with us, we can take care of that for you. And now they trust you more too. And they should trust you more because you care to figure out what the problem is. So that's my approach with it. I think it's successful. I think if people could start using that mindset to where it's starting off as a mutually beneficial setting instead of give me what you got, I think it'll go a lot smoother.
Cool. Well, that'll do it. That was a great interview. There is so much value in this interview, not only if you're just in the college football, NIL world, or business, but just also like learning just normal everyday skill sets that I think that a lot of people like kind of overlook, or as you just progress, whether that be your career or whatever you're doing, that kind of just go by the wayside. So I think it's a great interview just to kind of peel back some things. They're doing phenomenal work. Love that they're Austin based, us being from Austin. It's just cool to see what y'all are doing, especially like a lot of the things that were brought up were relationships in this podcast, and meeting Frankie, having a relationship that we have and have built, just being able to see it, fulfill later down the road with that, whatever we're doing or whatever he's been doing, and then, connecting with you, even from that initial DM, and then like still like rapport, following up with you, following up with Stefan, like it's cool to see like how impactful they are and how important they are. So I'm thankful for the interview. Super fun, and I learned a lot. I'm sure whoever listens to this is gonna take a lot from it too. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys, letting us come in here and doing this. Like I said at the beginning, it's been a long time coming. And then it was dope to dive inside the mind of what NIL like actually is, or how y'all see NIL versus what the world sees NIL is. And like Cam said, I think you could take a lot of great information from this and probably have a different perspective than what you had before. I think there's a lot of golden nuggets in this pod that I think a lot of people will probably take away from. And it's dope that, it's coming from you guys. Someone like Cam said, built a relationship with someone that we've known for a few years now, and it's just bringing it all together. And now we're all here. So I thank y'all again for letting us come out doing this, and I wish y'all nothing but the best success.
Yeah, thank you guys. We had a great time. This is a phenomenal opportunity, and looking forward to doing some more stuff with you guys in the near future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Too good.
That'll do it for our boys over here at Opinionated. We'll catch y'all guys next time. Peace.
Peace.